My name is Kala, Arvind Kala. About India and China's military standoff, I have a suggestion for Mr. Modi. Restore Kashmir's old status, Mr. Modi. Altering that status was a huge blunder, but it doesn't matter. Nations blunder. America blundered by entering Vietnam, fighting a long war for 40 years and losing 58,000 soldiers. Russia blundered by entering Afghanistan, staying there for a few years and losing 15,000 soldiers. And Pakistan blundered by cracking down on his Bengali eastern half and losing that entire eastern half, which turned into Bangladesh. So if all these nations blunder, so can you, Mr. Modi. You blundered, admit it and move on. Restore Kashmir. But what you did, altering Kashmir's status, you can undo by restoring that old status. In fact, I think that suggestion has come from China itself via Pakistan, because the other day the Pakistan Prime Minister urged Modi to restore Kashmir's old status. And let's not forget that Pakistan is a serf of China's. Pakistan will not squeeze without China's approval. So this thing may very well come from China. The suggestion may have come and Mr. Modi should respond. Now, let's not forget one thing. Right now, the situation is explosive. If India has 50,000 armed troops on one side and China has 50,000 armed troops on the other side across the line of actual control, anything, who knows, in 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, something, there may be a flare-up and there could be a war. And that would be a war with only one outcome. India versus China is like Sonia Gandhi's Manmohan Singh versus WWF wrestler. So India versus China would be, India would be Manmohan Singh and China would be the WWF wrestler. They're immensely stronger than India militarily, economically, in every way. Now China's defense budget is 4 times India's. Its defense exports are 23 times those of India's. This is not me speaking. This is these are figures from the world's most authoritative institute for military spending, military expenditure, the SIPRI, Stockholm Peace Research Institute. You know, whose annual reports are taken as the gospel truth. Now, China's defense budget was $293 billion before Bombay. India's was 67. China's exports were 23 times that. And China is becoming self-sufficient in defense production. Now, you know, gradually over time, China will realize it will not need to import weapons because it will manufacture them on its own. This is again SIPRI speaking. So why should we, India should look at its own self-interest, as Mr. Modi also does. Why should we get into combat with a stronger enemy? Let's make peace. Let's not forget, after all, that for 58 years before Mr. Modi's adventurism, we had peace. And China doesn't have India. For India, China is a very big deal. For China, India is a nothing. China's focus is Taiwan. It's asserting sovereignty over the South China Seas, challenging America, the artificial intelligence in every way. India doesn't count for anything. And let's also not forget, they're much stronger. Look at our export-imports. China exported stuff worth $119 billion to India. India exported $17 billion, meaning they have an over 100 billion trade surplus. And Aravind Panagaria, a US-based Indian economist and a former advisor to Mr. Modi, warned India. He said, don't put trade barriers with China. Because those trade barriers will hurt India more than they'll hurt China. Let's not forget one thing, our pharmaceutical industry, which is huge, colossal, depends on APIs. The main ingredient there is something called APIs to manufacture generics. and 90% of that comes from China. There are what do you call, the solar power industry depends on Chinese panels, solar panels. So what is the point doing all this? And let's also not forget, China has no mean intentions towards India. Have we forgotten 1962? They routed us in that border war of 22 days, and they advanced 20 kilometers into India. So much so that Nehru thought that our entire northeast was lost, because that they would cut off that chicken's corridor. But they withdrew voluntarily after entering 20 miles into Indian territory. And they had, I think, 1,300 Indian POWs who returned to India safe and sound. So China's, we should have good relations with them. I mean, and here in this context, I'm reminded of what a US American economist, Paul Samuelson of the 60s, said once. Generally, it was common sense that a country is faced with a guns and butter situation, meaning you have limited money. Either you're going to spend it on weapons, or you're going to spend it on schools and hospitals and roads and bridges, which he meant by butter. So India's a poor country. China's per capita income is 5 times that of India's. Why the hell are we getting into this 50,000 troops at the line of control? What the hell? And we can leave this Ladakh question unresolved. It doesn't matter. There are 180 countries in this world, and they all share borders with, probably all of them share borders with something like 1,000 countries. China itself has a border with 14 countries. Now we at that border, India and China's border question will be settled whenever the time comes, or let it never be settled. It doesn't matter. Many times inaction is better than action. Let me repeat this, which nations and individuals and companies don't realize. Inaction is better than action. Let sleeping dogs lie. It doesn't matter. Now China has a longer border with Russia, 4,200 kilometers. With us, their border is only 3,500. If they could resolve that border with Russia, they will do this with India sooner or later. But let's wait. We waited 58 years. Let's wait another 20 years, 40 years, 50 years, 100 years. Let it never be resolved. How does it matter? Meanwhile, the world carries on, and we get internet, and the world becomes better and better and better and better. So, we should have that kind of an attitude. There's no point getting into a panga with a country which is going to make chutney of us. So, Mr. Modi, don't stand on ego. Don't let your ego decide India's defense and foreign policy. It's going to ruin the nation. So my good luck to you, good wishes to you. And friends, if you like this video, please forward it to everybody. And if you're seeing it on YouTube, then there's a red subscriber button below. Please press that, and I'll be your slave for the rest of your life. I'll bid you farewell. See you later, alligator.